Hey there! Today we are looking at some of the most haunting attacks of sharks on humans. From a commercial abalone diver off the southern coast of Western Australia to a young deckhand who crossed the dark, muddy river at sunset in waters he had swum dozens of times before and did not come out the other side. But first, we start off the coast of Gansbai, South Africa, where a group of tourists climbed into a reinforced acrylic pod to become nothing but a play toy to a great white. It happened on April 3rd, 2024, off the coast of Gansbai, South Africa. Clear skies, light swell, the kind of morning that looks perfect in photographs. 6 tourists got on Daniel Dale's boat. They wanted to see one of the most incredible animals in the ocean. They planned to watch it through a thick, clear wall of acrylic. When that boat came back to port, one of them was not on it. Daniel was a former marine fisheries researcher who had moved into cage diving tourism. His commercial license had expired 4 months earlier and was never renewed. Because renewal required an inspection, he knew the boat wouldn't pass. He was running paying passengers on a research permit that explicitly prohibited it. Standard industry protocol capped cage groups at 4 passengers. A rule built around a simple fact: 4 people could be briefed properly and pulled out fast if something went wrong. Daniel ran 6 because 6 paid better, and no licensing body was checking his manifests since his boat wasn't registered as a tourist operation at all. There was no safety briefing beyond a rushed rundown on the dock. No emergency drill, no plan for a fast extraction. The acrylic pod itself was secondhand, welded together from old research parts, never certified for tourist use. A safety inspector had flagged the seam junctions in a written report 8 months earlier. That report was filed, but nothing changed because research vessels weren't enforced the way licensed tour boats were. And Daniel made sure his paperwork kept it that way. The 6 tourists that morning came from very different lives. Nora Ashford, 52, a retired British accountant who had just come through cancer treatment. Liam Carter, 29, an Australian wildlife photographer. May Lin, 34, a Singaporean scientist studying shark behavior. Ethan Clark, 41, an American tech entrepreneur. Sofia Alvarez, 27, a Spanish travel blogger. And Khalid Nasser, 45, a UAE executive and certified diver. 6 different people in a pod meant to hold 4 on a boat that wasn't legally allowed to carry any of them. And sadly, none of them knew it. The crew put out a chum line heavier than any regulated limit allowed. Within the first hour, several great whites appeared far off, moving in slow, wide circles around the scent. Then, one big female, maybe 14 or 15 feet long, started getting closer. The acrylic pod sat just below the surface, moving gently with the waves. She began making tighter and tighter passes near the pod, returning again and again to the same lower seam where the panels met the frame bolts, the exact junction the inspector had flagged 8 months earlier. Never reinforced, never replaced. Daniel and the crew thought she was just being curious. She was. That didn't matter as much as they thought it would. Then she hit the pond. Once, a single pass, head on, full weight into the side panel. That one impact was enough. The latch of the flagged seam had never been rated for anything beyond static water pressure, and even that rating belonged to a research-grade specification, not the modified pod. Now, holding 6 people instead of the 4 it was built for, it gave way instantly. The door swung open into the current. Nobody had been briefed on what to do if the seal failed, because nobody had planned for it to fail. Panic took over, and panic in a group rarely stays individual for long. One person bolted for the surface, and the rest followed in the same half second, the way one moving body in a crowd pulls everyone else into motion behind it. 5 swimmers kicking for the same patch of light didn't look like 5 people escaping. They looked like one tight, thrashing cluster, all moving the same direction at once. That was the mistake. Spread out, even a few seconds apart, they might have had a chance. Together, they looked like a single shape worth investigating. The shark came back around and passed through the cluster once. Liam took the main bite closest to her line of approach, full clamping force. Sophia, just beside him, caught a shallower secondary bite as the strike continued past him. Ethan was hit by her body rolling through the group, the impact alone enough to fracture bone before any tooth came near him. Khalid caught the edge of her tail as she turned away, tearing his shoulder. May, at the outer edge, was raked along her side by rough skin rather than teeth. One pass, one animal moving through a cluster of panicked swimmers. 5 very different injuries, depending on exactly where each of them was standing in the water when it happened. Due to the impact, it drove the air out from their lungs, making them inhale water. Nora never left the pod. The same impact that blew the door open threw her against the interior frame. She struck her head and went still. While the others were being pulled from open water, she was already taking on water she couldn't escape. Unconscious, unable to surface. She drowned before the crew got the pod up. The shark never touched her. She never even left the cage. The boat returned to port under emergency protocol. 4 survivors needed immediate trauma care. 1 did not survive at all. It genuinely shocks me how such a nightmare can happen in the blink of an eye. What followed was less an investigation than an unraveling. No valid license, a research permit masking an illegal tourism operation, a pod with a known structural flaw left unfixed for 8 months. 6 passengers in a pod that should never have held more than 4, with no briefing, no drill, no plan. Daniel was charged with operating illegally, fraud, falsifying safety records, and negligence, resulting in death. His operation was shut down for good, and regulators used the case to close the exact loophole that had let him run unchecked for years. But the next story is different. It involves a man who understood the ocean professionally, followed every rule his industry required, and still ran out of time 60 feet below the surface with no warning and no way back. On November 12, 2019, along the southern coast, the sky was gray and the swell had been building since morning, rolling in hard against the reef line along that stretch of coast. 37-year-old Raymond Cho, known simply as Ray, was gearing up for what was meant to be a short afternoon dive, but he never came back the way he went in. Ray was a commercial abalone diver. He had worked this coastline for years, harvesting abalone from licensed nearshore reef zones under strict operational guidelines. This was not recreational diving. There were surface support boats, timed dive windows, designated zones, and daylight-only regulations built specifically around managing risk. Ray knew all of it, and he followed all of it. The season was in its final stretch. Late spring pushed into early summer, and the commercial quota was nearly complete. That meant operators were working inside narrowing weather windows to finish remaining dives before seasonal pauses or weather closures forced a stop. There was pressure to get it done. Not panic, just the steady push that anyone working a harvest-driven job understands well. That pressure is worth sitting with for a moment, because it is the reason Ray went into the water that afternoon instead of waiting for a cleaner day. He was not being careless. He was doing his job within the margins. His industry operates in every single season, and those margins on that particular afternoon were not wide enough. By the time Ray hit the water, visibility near the reef was already bad and getting worse. The swell was pushing sand up off the bottom and cutting sight lines down to almost nothing. His support team watched from above. Everything still looked fine from up there. That was the problem. Up there and down there were 2 completely different worlds that afternoon. Ray moved carefully along the reef, staying close to the rock formations. Nothing unusual, nothing visible, but something was already in that water with him, and the same low visibility that made his job harder that day was making it a great deal easier for something else. Great white sharks do not need clear water to locate a target. They detect pressure changes, electrical fields, and movement through organs that work independently of light and visibility. A large white shark patrolling a coastal reef in turbulent surge conditions reads the water in ways that have no human equivalent. A diver working close to rock formations in low visibility is practically invisible to the human eye and completely readable to a hunting shark. What happened next was not something the surface crew could have anticipated. The shark moved in along the reef edge. It made contact with Ray's lower leg, one rapid bite only. But that single contact caused catastrophic damage. The bite hit major blood vessels in his lower leg. Ray was incapacitated almost immediately, partly from the injury and partly from the surge near the reef that made it impossible to stay controlled in the water without the full use of both legs. This is the part I keep coming back to when I think about what happened to Ray. He was inside the rules, permitted zone, support team in position, everything by the book, and none of it mattered. The ocean does not recognize safety protocols. Neither do they make exceptions for compliance. The surface team reacted immediately and hauled Ray out of the water using standard commercial dive emergency procedures. They started first aid on the boat right away, trying to stop the bleeding, but it wasn't enough. The damage to the blood vessels was too severe. Ray died from blood loss before he could reach advanced medical care. The incident was officially recorded as an unprovoked shark encounter during commercial abalone diving operations. Contributing factors were noted as reduced underwater visibility, active swell conditions, and proximity to reef structure. Ray Cho was 37 years old. He was doing his job. The coastline he had worked for years gave him no signal and no second chance. And the hardest thing about that is there is no version of that day where Ray did something wrong. Ray was a professional. He had training, support, protocols, and years of experience behind him. None of it was enough. The next person had none of that. She was 17 years old, standing in waist-deep water on a summer outing, and the only thing that put her in danger was one backward step at the wrong moment. June 28, 2021, Tampa Bay, Florida. The morning was already warm, the air thick and still, holding that heavy coastal heat even before 9 a.m. 17-year-old Madison Chen had no idea that the most routine summer outing of her life was about to become something she would spend years trying to recover from. Maddie was a high school senior from Tampa. She had grown up adjacent to the ocean, spent summers wading through coastal shallows, and carried that particular brand of confidence that comes purely from familiarity. She was never the one who needed convincing to get in the water. The outing was organized through a local youth group, 8 teenagers, 2 supervising adults, and a shallow sandbar beside a tidal channel in the intracoastal waterway. Locals visited the area during low tide, but the deeper water nearby carried a steady flow of fish moving between the bay and surrounding estuaries. From outside, everything looked normal. Waist-deep water, white sand, and an open sky. But what it looked like and what it actually was were 2 entirely different things. That stretch of the intracoastal connects to nearby tidal estuaries, so it's a common route for fish moving between salt and brackish water. Before they went in, a supervising adult gave a quick warning. Don't splash too much and stay away from deeper channels. Most of the teenagers listened, most of them at least. Looking at it now, it's easy to see how ordinary it all seemed at the start. Nothing about that morning would have raised alarm for most people. But that's often how these situations are remembered later. The first hour passed without incident. Then a splash fight started. 8 teenagers in shallow water. I doubt anyone in that group thought twice about it. But 8 people splashing around in a tidal channel quickly turned the calm water into foam and stir up sand, making it cloudy and messy underneath. Maddie stepped backward mid-splash, misjudged the edge of the sandbar, and stepped into slightly deeper water where her footing became unstable and she briefly lost balance. Bull sharks are known for their aggressive, territorial behavior and are responsible for more unprovoked attacks in shallow coastal waters than most other shark species. What separates them from most other species is not size but habitat range. They are uniquely capable of surviving in both saltwater and freshwater, making shallow coastal waterways, river mouths, and intracoastal corridors their primary hunting ground, rather than an exception. They are territorial, stimulus-driven, and require no depth to be lethal. The shark was moving along the channel edge where small fish gathered. It was a mature bull shark about 8 feet long, staying near the boundary between shallow and deeper water. The water was already cloudy from the activity. When Maddie began thrashing in the deeper channel, the shark turned toward the disturbance. The bite was fast. It clamped onto her lower left leg for a moment, then released and moved away. In most cases like this, sharks don't continue once they realize it isn't prey. They break off and leave, and that is usually the end of the interaction. But the damage had already been done. The bite tore deeply into the lower leg and severed a major artery. Blood loss was immediate and severe, spreading quickly through the water around her. Her friends pulled her onto the sandbar within seconds and tried to control the bleeding. They pressed hard on the wound and used whatever they had to slow it down, but the injury was far beyond what makeshift help could handle. In situations like this, time is the only thing that matters, and they simply didn't have enough of it. By the time emergency responders reached them, she had already lost consciousness. She died from blood loss before she could be airlifted out. Looking at it afterwards, nothing about that moment felt like what people imagined danger to look like. There was no warning, no buildup, no sense that anything had changed until it already had. It was just a normal stretch of water, and then suddenly it wasn't. What happened to Maddie took almost nothing to set in motion. She was in the wrong place for about 30 seconds. That was all it took. The next person gave the ocean considerably more time to work with. He stayed in the same spot, kept adding signals to the water, and kept telling himself it was fine. The Neptune Islands had been waiting for exactly that kind of patience. The whole thing went down on March 19th, 2018, Neptune Islands, South Australia. The water was cold, deep blue. You could see maybe 30 feet in front of you, then nothing but dark. Jake Morrison, 36 years old. He dived in places like this more times than he could remember. That kind of comfort is usually a good thing. But looking back now, that same comfort might be what killed him. Jake was an experienced spearfisher who worked the offshore reef systems around the Neptune Islands regularly. He knew this stretch of water the way a tradesman knows a work site. He understood the terrain, the fish patterns, and the risks that came with diving in one of the most consistently active great white shark regions on the planet. He had been in close proximity to large sharks twice before, both times without incident, and those experiences had built in him a quiet confidence that he could read the water and handle whatever it presented. That kind of confidence is almost impossible to argue with when it keeps working. The problem is, it keeps working right up until the day stops. And when it stops out here, there is no second conversation about it. On that morning, Jay conducted a solo scouting dive near the Neptune Islands to assess reef zones and hunt fish in an area he had worked before. Early in the dive, he speared a large, dusky morwong, a solid catch, but the fish dropped into a rocky crevice before he could secure it. Most divers would have called the dive and come back another day, but Jake stayed. Jake kept spearing smaller reef fish in the same spot. He'd clip each one onto a float line attached to his gear. Before long, that line had a bunch of dying fish on it. They were flopping around, bleeding into the water, sending out all the wrong signals. Not that Jake thought about it that way at the time. He also had a small cut on his hand from brushing against some reef, but honestly, that cut wasn't the problem. A little blood from a scratch doesn't mean much in the open ocean. What really mattered were those fish on the line. They were the ones ringing the dinner bell. Jake wasn't even the main attraction. His catch was. Great white sharks are the largest predatory fish on Earth. A specimen at 16 feet can weigh over 2,000 pounds. They do not analyze situations. They respond to stimuli, irregular movement, struggling prey, vibration in a concentrated area. When those signals are strong enough and close enough, the response is not gradual, it is abrupt. A large great white had been moving along the deeper perimeter of the reef system. At some point, the activity from Jake's float line pulled it toward the shallower structure. It entered the area. What happened after that was not a slow process. Jake reached down toward his line to manage the catch. The movement was sharp and downward in water already full of active signals. The shark was close. It made contact with his lower torso and leg region. The injury was catastrophic. The shark released and did not return. The whole event lasted seconds. That is the part people struggle to process. Not a prolonged struggle. Not a series of warnings building towards something. Seconds, and then it was over. The disturbance was spotted by Jake's boat support almost immediately. Sudden turbulence at the surface. Jake briefly appeared above the water. The combination of injury, severity, and water movement near the reef pulled him under. Recovery efforts began immediately. Jake was not recovered alive. His body was never fully retrieved. Fragments of his wetsuit and equipment were found offshore and along nearby shorelines in the days that followed. The incident was officially classified as a probable, unprovoked great white shark attack during spearfishing activity. Contributing factors were recorded as fish disturbance, prolonged presence in a single zone, and low visibility near reef structure. I keep coming back to those previous encounters Jake walked away from. They told him something. They reinforced a picture of himself as someone who could operate in that water and come back. And that picture was accurate every single time until it wasn't. The Neptune Islands will let you leave 100 times. That was never the same thing as permission. Jake was taken near the surface in water he knew well. What comes next happened at 70 feet in open Atlantic during a dive that went perfectly right up until the moment it did not. The next person had no mistakes to point to, just the decompression stop, open water, and something moving up from below. August 4th, 2022. Offshore Cape Hatteras, North Carolina. The water was flat, the wind light, and the sky clear enough to draw technical dive teams out toward deep wreck sites. 29-year-old Marcus Vance was one of the most experienced divers in the area. What stopped him from coming home that afternoon was something no one on his team expected. Marcus dove deep to film old World War II shipwrecks. He worked with small documentary crews. He usually dove between 200 and 300 feet. At that depth, your thinking gets foggy. You have almost no room for error. One piece of gear fails and it is over before anyone knows what happened. He was careful. He stayed calm when other divers would panic. That day, the wreck sat at about 270 feet. Marcus finished the bottom part fine. Then he started coming up. At those depths, you cannot skip your decompression stops. Your body needs time to let the gas out of your blood safely. Skip that and you get decompression sickness. 60 miles offshore, that usually kills you. Marcus stopped around 70 feet and held still in open water. He waited for his clock to run down. This far offshore, the water is not a coastal environment anymore. It is open Atlantic, and what moves through it at depth belongs to a completely different category of animal than anything found near shore. That distinction rarely appears in wreck diving briefings. It probably should. I want to be direct about something here. Wreck divers spend enormous preparation time on bath management, gas planning, narcosis thresholds, and decompression schedules. The open pelagic environment at 60 miles offshore is a separate ecosystem that gets far less attention in that preparation. Marcus had accounted for every variable his training covered. This one sat outside of it entirely. Oceanic white-tip sharks are a wide-ranging open ocean species that spend most of their time far from surface activity and are only rarely encountered in the offshore waters of the US East Coast. A large shark came toward the ascent line. Nobody on the boat had time to think before things happened fast. The shark came up from deeper water. It did not rush. It moved in a wide, slow circle around the line. Marcus was still blowing bubbles with his gear lights on. Normally, that keeps most sharks away. This one kept getting closer. On one pass, it bit his upper thigh and lower body. The wound was bad. A lot of blood loss right away. Surfacing was an option, but a dangerous one. He still had decompression time left. If he went up early, he could get decompression sickness bad enough to kill him. Going back down was also possible, but he did not have much air left. Every choice looked like it could kill him. That is the worst part. There was no safe way out. Cases like this rarely comes down to a single mistake. They usually happen because several conditions lined up at the wrong time. Decompression stops are not a physical barrier, but leaving early means trading one serious risk for another, and neither option is safe in the same way. This was a routine technical dive, and rescue still had to follow decompression rules before they could respond. Other divers were already in decompression and could not assist without putting themselves in danger. The closest diver began ascending as fast as possible, but it was still not fast enough to reach Marcus in time. By the time Marcus was brought to the surface, blood loss had gone beyond recovery. Resuscitation efforts failed. He was pronounced dead shortly after retrieval. The incident was recorded as a fatal shark encounter during a decompression ascent in offshore Atlantic waters. Marcus was as prepared as anyone working at that level. The variable that ended his life was one that preparation had simply never been designed to address. Some encounters happen in places that look dangerous the moment you arrive. Marcus died 60 miles offshore in deep blue water. The next story did not happen in the ocean at all. It happened in a river, a muddy, dark, familiar river that a 22-year-old had crossed more times than he could count. He thought he knew exactly what was in it. He was wrong about that for the last time on January 30th. January 30th, 2021. The Lower Clarence River, New South Wales, Australia. The kind of summer evening where the heat refuses to break even after the sun drops, the air still thick as the last light faded across the water. 22-year-old Kalen Mitchell, known to everyone as Mitch, looked at that river the way he always did, like it was his. By the time anyone on that boat understood what was happening, it was already over. Mitch worked as a deckhand on a small commercial crabbing vessel operating the brackish tidal waterways of the Clarence River. Long shifts, early mornings, physical work in heat and mud. He had been doing it long enough that the river felt routine to him, which was, if you know anything about this region, exactly the wrong way to feel about it. He was known among his co-workers for a specific kind of confidence that crossed into carelessness. Mitch regularly dismissed warnings about estuarine predators in the Clarence River, treating the waterway the way most people treat a backyard pool. His co-workers had raised it more than once. He was not the type to adjust. There is a version of that attitude that looks like toughness from the outside. Sometimes it even is, but in a tidal river system that connects directly to the sea, that attitude stops being tough and starts being a different thing entirely. The moment Mitch crossed that line, the river felt like it had been waiting for him all along. The crew worked a 12-hour shift. Then they parked the boat in the lower part of the river just before sunset. The water looked dark and muddy. You could not see anything below the surface. The sun set low on the horizon, making long shadows across the water. Sunset on a muddy river that leads straight to the open ocean. That is one of the most dangerous times for shark encounters in Australian rivers. People had warned Mitch about this part of the river. He got in the water anyway and started swimming across. Bull sharks are the only shark species capable of living and actively hunting in completely fresh water, moving freely between ocean and river systems through tidal inflows. The Clarence River has a well-documented history of bull shark presence in its lower reaches, particularly during summer months when warmer water pushes larger individuals further upstream. A mature bull shark reaches 8 feet in length and over 300 pounds. They are not ambush hunters. They are persistent, reactive, and in zero visibility, turbid water, they respond to movement and vibration with a speed that leaves almost no window for anything else. People on the boat saw something sudden happen beside Mitch. About halfway across the channel, the shark hit him from below, a hard bump. Then right away, a bite to his upper thigh and groin. The bite cut a main artery in his leg. When that artery is cut, you bleed out fast. There is no long fight. Your body cannot deal with that kind of damage. It just stops. Mitch screamed. He tried to turn back toward the boat. The crew could see him. They threw flotation devices into the water and shouted his name. The water was black with sediment, and the light was nearly gone, and within a very short time, Mitch stopped moving toward them and did not come back up. His body was recovered downstream the following day. Investigators noted that the combination of dust conditions, turbid water, active tidal flow, and confirmed bull shark presence in that section of the Clarence River created near ideal conditions for a predatory encounter. The findings listed it as a fatal, unprovoked bull shark attack. Accurate, clinical, contained in a paragraph. What that report does not say is the part I keep coming back to. The Clarence River had been what it was for decades. The warnings were not new, not vague, and not hard to find. Mitch had heard them from the people who worked alongside him every single day. He chose a different version of that information, and the river had absolutely no interest in that version. The Clarence River took Mitch in under 2 minutes. Dark water, no warning, no second chance.